right, fellas. I rushed home. Conor McGahey is on for an emergency podcast alongside Mark Springer. We're going to be joined by a few more people as well. DMac's going to jump on in what is, tell me if I'm wrong, this is the biggest trade in Avalanche history. Hands down. A guy whose jersey was likely going to go into the rafters, who spent a decade here, who is top 10 in points and goals and assists, has a Stanley Cup championship to his name, and Mikko Rantanen has been traded away to the Carolina Hurricanes as of right now. Marty Necas coming back, Jack Drury coming back, a second rounder and a fourth rounder coming back to the Avalanche, as well as it seems as though Mikko Rantanen and the Colorado Avalanche could not come to terms on a contract extension, and Chris MacFarland makes the decision, I'm not going to let him be Dikembe Mutombo. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to find a guy that can help us to win now, and we're going to figure out the future when it comes to pass. Conor McGahey, Mark Springer, DMac, Alex Ryanemi. Fellas, this caught everyone off guard. It caught me off guard. I don't know where to start.
I was getting ready to go to sleep because I'm 2 hours ahead of you guys. And, I'm an old man, so I'm like, I got nothing better to do. And I'm literally about to just, start the process of going to sleep because it's an afternoon game tomorrow. And one last look at X. And I tell people this all the time. I find out news just like you do when you look on Twitter. And I literally couldn't. It was tough to believe. I mean, and obviously when it comes from Elliot Friedman, you know that it's legitimate. He's not just going to throw something out there. But you're right, Raj. I can't think of a bigger. I think of bigger acquisitions maybe that the Avalanche have made. Obviously, Rob Blake is up there for as far as a big trade goes in Avalanche history. Obviously, trade deadline for the 01 Cup. But as far as a centerpiece player going away, this has to be it. And if negotiations weren't going to happen, if there was no more movement there, then the Avalanche needed to get pieces back instead of letting Mikko Rantanen walk for free. And this is exactly what they get. Marty Necas, $6.5 million for one more year. He's a 2017 draft, along with Makar, Mittelstadt, and Jack Drury is a top guy in faceoffs, and the Avalanche need help. They're 31st in the NHL from the dot. In the process, they save over $1 million, and Carolina basically trades for 4 months of Mikko Rantanen with no guarantee that they'll be able to re-sign him. So if you have to make a move and you have to get something, I think it's a pretty darn good return for Mikko Rantanen.
Okay, but why? Why couldn't they re-sign him? Why couldn't they get a deal done? Why?
I don't know. I mean, are you in the negotiating room? Because I'm not either. But I can assume that too much money is being asked for. I don't know that, but I mean that's the only conclusion that you can come to. And if everyone's at an impasse, then you have to move on. So. Like I said, if you have to, then this is, and with a 9-team no trade list that Mikko Rantanen has, Carolina is not on that. He did not have to say yes to this deal. So, I think that maybe too much was being asked for. Again, you don't know. I don't want to speculate ever, but we can assume that was the case.
Mark Springer, your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Raj, you and I have yelled about Mikko Rantanen all season long. And, my concern was essentially if they paid Mikko, if they even paid Mikko 12, just over 12, comparable to what Nate is making. And I know that, Nate signed that contract a few years ago and the market goes up. There's inflation. Now a player less than Nate, that's what Mikko is. Would be making more than Nate. Look, I get it. Inflation. Draisaitl just signed a $14 million per extension. He's a great player. He's not as good as Connor McDavid, who will be making more than. If the Avs signed Mikko to even at least 12.5, which could have been doable, and Raj talked about that, the extra year that the Avs could have paid him, having the control over him. Now the Carolina Hurricanes get to do that. My concern was that they run the risk of of becoming the Toronto Maple Leafs, where you are paying big money for a handful of players, and then the rest of the roster becomes difficult to fill out. I think we need to ask ourselves the question, what type of player is Mikko Rantanen really? And was he really worth $12.5 to $14 million per? I love Mikko Rantanen, but I'm not quite sure he was worth that.
And he's a sensational player. Like, he is a player that I think if you ended his career right now, you could make the argument that 96 goes up into the rafters. He's the 10th overall pick in 2015. He's the number 1 rated European skater in that draft, and he falls all the way to 10. He's a 2-time All-Star. He scored 55 goals 2 years ago. He's about to have his 3rd straight 100-point season, which my argument is those things don't grow on trees. Franchises wait decades to find 50-goal scorers or 100-point scorers, and Mikko Rantanen is not one, but both of those things. He's 6th in franchise history in goals. He's 7th in franchise history in points. It was a remarkable run that Mikko Rantanen had, and I'm not going to fault any player for looking for the money that he believes he's due. But the truth is here. The Avalanche have an internal cap of $12.6 million, and they should. I don't think he can make more than Nathan MacKinnon. I didn't think they were going to make this deal, although I didn't believe if they traded Mikko Rantanen, you would get the haul coming back to you that you got. Marty Necas is on pace for about 95 points this year. Yep. That guy is not someone to scoff at.
Which would be a new career high. 71 is his previous high. And he was... When the Avs had him at Ball Arena early in the year, you're talking top 5-6 scorer in the National Hockey League. Tailed off a little bit as of late. 7 points his last 7 games. But 6'3", it's a big body. It's a right-handed shot, a guy who can pass, who can score. And again, a cheaper option. With the two of them, I mean, $1.5 million with this cap is a lot of room to work with. And that was probably a big reason that the Avs were able to do this.
Can I ask an obvious question, though?
Always.
Sure.
So tomorrow, with Conor McGahey on the call on Altitude,
Alex Ryan-Emmy on the network broadcast,
in the Boston Garden, Wicked Smart.
It's Dak. It's like Wicked Dak down there. How's it going, Bob?
Are the Avalanche a better team tomorrow than they were when they played at home a couple days ago?
No, Mikko Rantanen is a better player than Martin Necas. Now, Connor, you say $1.5 million, they say, because Mikko is a 9.25.
I think it's 1.24. I was just looking at it. I think it's $1.24 million that they save.
All right. So if they're not a better player tomorrow, when they pull off the final end of this deal and get Sidney Crosby as a rental for the rest of the year, are they better then?
I mean, that everyone's always wondering when Kevin Weeks posts a picture of a skyline, right, and the eyes and the googly eyes.
I mean,
right?
Is that next?
Everybody, I mean, Biz Nasty and Ryan Whitney. I mean, they might just their heads might actually explode if that happens.
They're stirring drinks.
Well, because my question is, whatever you're doing is to get closer to the Stanley Cup. If you're not better tomorrow because of this deal, you can't be done. I mean, the trade deadline's not till March.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Spring, go ahead.
Well, yes, like, okay, I and Raj and I had talked about this, and I had said, look, I still, even though I question whether or not they'd be able to make it work in the offseason, would they trade him by the deadline? And I said no, because he's the type of player you acquire, even if he's a rental. You would trade assets to go get a Mikko Rantanen. He helps you win now.
He does, no doubt.
But with the long-term mixed in, I saw somebody bring up John Tavares and the Islanders. They let him walk for nothing. Look at where the Islanders are right now. They could have used some assets.
Great point.
That they would have gotten for Tavares. So right now, immediately, yeah, it's a little bit of a downgrade, but maybe, okay, I mean, let's go back to the Sidney Crosby conversation, because I think they have the ammo. I really do. I was thinking about this just before we went on the show. And look, Mikko's a 9.25 cap hit. Necas appears to be 6.5. That appears to be closer to $3 million. They say
Drury featured in there as well.
What was that, Connor?
Jack Drury, who's the other acquisition.
Okay, yes, okay, you're right. You're adding the Drury contract as well. Okay,
the Drury contract is 1.725.
Okay, thank you.
This is this year and next year. So he's an RFA at the age of 26 in 2026, and Necas goes through next year as well. So neither of these are expiring contracts, so you can't really call these rentals. Necas will be 27 next year, which makes him a UFA. So the RFA for Jack Drury, UFA for Marty Necas at the end of next season.
Maybe you flip Drury in a deal for Sidney Crosby, but the framework I would start with for a deal for Sidney Crosby, and I don't know how much they would covet this player right now. They might have coveted him more in the first month or so of the season. That would be Casey Middlestat.
Fine.
But then, because his stock might be down a little bit, you're looking at Cal Ritchie.
Fine.
Ilya Nabokov, perhaps, but the way Blackwood's going,
we're good at
goalie. I'd part with Nabokov for Crosby right now.
Yep.
There's a
go ahead,
and
Crosby.
Okay,
it's still a pipe dream with Crosby. The Crosby thing is, talk about wet dreams for me. Crosby to Colorado is that. It's still a pipe dream. What I think we need to focus on here is DMac. You had a good question. Are the Avs better right now than they were?
I guess we never answered
two hours ago. I don't know if we completely answer that. Spring says no. Mikko Rantanen, 50-goal scorer. Now you don't have one. You don't have a 100-point score. There is something to be said for. It's not like Carolina traded away their 6th or 7th best player.
Necas is their number one point.
Might be their best player on the entire
leads the Carolina
roster.
Hurricanes in points. Marty Necas.
And Carolina, over the last half decade, has been a serious contender to not only win the Eastern Conference, but win a Stanley Cup championship. That's a good roster. That's a good team.
So why did they
scrub back?
Why did they do this?
You know what? I have your answer. I have your answer. For the last half decade, Mark Springer and I have been talking about the Carolina Hurricanes while they'll never win a cup. And my answer was they don't have the guy. They don't have the guy that's going to go out and score 40, 50 goals, put up 100 points. They haven't had that player for the entirety of the Rod Brind'Amour era. They're never going to win a cup with that guy. And you know what? They freaking realized it this year. The Avalanche already have 2 of those players. You can make an argument for 3 of them if you throw Val Nichushkin in. So you can make the argument that Chris McFarland is dealing from a position of power here, where he has this surplus of stud talent, and Carolina desperately needs it. And Chris goes, oh crap, my guy's not going to sign. Let's see if we can get something back and make something work for both teams. Carolina was never going to win a cup without a stud. Colorado has 3, if not 4 of those players. You make a deal, and you know what? I think he got even better today.
That does answer DMac's question, though. Mikko is a better player than Marty Necas. Necas is a damn good, underrated player. Mikko's better. Carolina has the ability to pay him the money he wants because they don't have Makar, McKinnon on their roster. They will make room for the money for a player like Mikko Rantanen. And now Mikko gets an opportunity to go prove that he is just that he is that $14 million player. He's not playing with Nate anymore. He's not playing with Cale anymore. I am curious to see what Mikko Rantanen's production will be like in Carolina now that he is their best player. He is a best player on an NHL team now.
Yeah, but they're having a great season. They're Carolina's doing all right. Hey, listen, man, I'm not going to lie. You realize fans are stunned right now. You realize that, guys, right? This is the most shocking trade I think it's the most shocking trade in Avalanche history. Seriously. I mean, I understand.
Another time?
I understand the logic. I do. And I do agree. If you're seriously going to get nothing, you can do one of 2 things. This guy is so important and we're going to win a championship. We're willing to live with whatever happens, or we got to get something. We just can't lose out and get absolutely nothing. But what's the goal here this year for the Avs? It's to win the Stanley Cup, right? I don't know why you'd settle for anything less.
It always is. And there are no guarantees. So that's why I think when you're a general manager and pick a sport, I think hockey in particular, because there is a cap. Can you go for broke? Absolutely. But I think there is a balance, even when you're in cup windows, to not turn into a team that goes in the doldrums and through the desert for a long time after the window closes, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So there does have to be a little bit of balance, and you can still strike while the iron's hot. And boy, with Makar, McKinnon, Nichushkin, Landeskog is still a possibility. Don't forget that. Maybe a player we're not even talking about yet. The window, I mean, this is still a championship contender. I firmly believe this, especially with the moves that were made in between the pipes. But you now have 6 players that weren't on the roster, that were on the roster on opening night who are no longer with the Avalanche. So I think that tinkering shows that they can be better. And look, we talk on a nightly basis. The entire month alternated wins and losses. You've lost 2 in a row now. And I think that they can be better. And this is a step, as much as people don't think that it is, to making them better. Will make them better, whether it's short-term or long-term, even inside of the remainder of the season.
Okay.
Hey, good comment from Simulator Addict on the YouTube chat. Hey, Spring, you have the money to keep Drouin next year now. That's where the Avs were.
Okay.
You know, if they extended Mikko, peace out Jonathan Drouin. Now, we would rather have Mikko Rantanen over Jonathan Drouin in a vacuum, but when you talk about filling out 4 lines, Jonathan Drouin could be a value piece, making, I mean, he's probably earned himself a little bit of a raise this season, but no more than $5 million. That's just more palatable towards the salary cap for Colorado than Mikko was.
Hey, and you know who needs a new deal, not next year, but the year after? Cale Makar. Yeah.
All right, I can tell you guys something, at least my own observation. Jared Bednar called the performance on the homestand inconsistent, 5 out of a possible 10 points, referred to the Wild game, which they lost, to, I think, Fleury, who's like 100 years old, said that reminded him of the Chicago loss, which was a terrible loss. Gave away a 3-goal lead to Edmonton. I'm just stating facts here, okay? And then in the locker room after the overtime loss to Winnipeg, and nobody's in there except for Cale Makar to talk to anybody, you could tell things were weird, guys. I'm just telling you. You could just sense there's something just not right here. I mean, and Bednar himself called it inconsistent. I kind of get it now, frankly. I do. This must have been some cloud that was lingering over the head of a lot of people, because Mikko's very, very well liked, okay? So everybody must have known what was going on, and they probably anticipated something like this happen, and they're probably not surprised by this whatsoever. And in all honesty, just to keep it real, as much as I love Mikko, if this was some cloud over their head, they're better to move on quickly from it. They are.
I do think you have to look at the other cloud that was over the team's head a month and a half ago. And that cloud was the goaltending cloud. And Chris McFarland did something that is unprecedented in the history of the National Hockey League. He traded both of his starting goalies and his backup goaltender before the calendar flipped to the next year. That had never happened before. That was a cloud. And look how it changed the outlook of how we think about the Avs as true Stanley Cup championship favorites this year. It brought them back into that conversation. If this was a cloud and you needed to change up the feel of the room, I like the move. I'm not kicking Mikko on his way out the door. That's a Hall of Famer. He's a top 10 playoff performer in the history of the league. He is a Hall of Famer. You talk about the best Finnish players ever born, it goes Teemu Selanne, Jari Kurri, Mikko Rantanen. Those 3 all-time players. And unfortunately, you have to move on from him because he does believe that he is worth a Leon Draisaitl deal. Do I think he's Leon Draisaitl? No, I don't.
I wonder if the recent homestand, the 5-game homestand, played a factor. Mikko didn't score on the 5-game homestand. You're without Val Nichushkin. If you're a $12.5 to $14 million player, you gotta score on that homestand. Nathan McKinnon had some nice goals on that homestand. Cale Makar did as well. I wonder if there was just a realization that while we like this player, we cannot invest that much in that player.
And it's always about percentage of the cap too, because the escrow payments in the league have been canceled for the rest of the season, which is a good thing. That means that the salary cap is going to go up next year. Now, at this point in time, I don't think we know how much it's going to go up. They anticipate a significant amount, but we don't know how much that is yet. So when you have a cap that has a moving finish line, like the NHL salary cap will have over the next probably 5 or 6 years, you probably have to deal in percentages of the cap. So if, say, Nathan MacKinnon is taking up 13% of your current cap or your projected cap, then Mikko Rantanen can ask for 14% of the cap, even though the amount itself might be different, and I don't know what that is. You probably have to look at it in regards to percentage of your cap used, and so that's probably what happened there.
Grizz brings up a decent point here. Do you think McFarland and Sakic ran this past Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar?
Nope. I don't. I think no. I mean, maybe they told. Maybe they. I'm not sure. I mean, you asked me what I think. I think they thought something was happening. They might have told them first after it did happen, but no, I don't think they were looking for Cale or Nate to sign off on it. If that's the question, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's hard to say. Like I said, I'm never in that room and keep my distance. But I feel like, Jared Bednar always talks about the leadership group and bringing, everybody in together. So I don't know if that also means personnel decisions too.
I mean, they may have said, "Hey guys, come on in. We're making a deal for Mikko. This is what we're getting." Blah 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 blah. I mean, that they could have done something like that.
The guy.
I think fans way overrate the whole, like, we're going to talk to our star players about our personnel moves. Way overestimate it. And hey, listen, man, they're pro athletes. They get paid a lot of money. Sometimes you just got to suck it up and deal with it and not be a baby and just understand. And you know what? For the most part, pro athletes actually do understand that a lot better than the fans. They do. They get it.
Biff, your comment on Twitter of and the ownership group is cheap is just patently false. The Avalanche have the second smallest cap space in the entire National Hockey League. They spend literally more
the cap every year.
They spend more than they're allowed to spend because of the long-term injured reserve. They have negative $5.81 million in cap space because they're utilizing Gabe Landeskog's money to pay more money than they're allowed to this year. That's just a patently false comment right there. The ownership group wants to win. The front office has all of the tools in front of them to go and win a Stanley Cup championship. And it's the main reason why I think this deal is going to end up working out for them. Spring, decent question here. Talk about that leadership group, right? Mikko Rantanen's part of that leadership group.
True.
Who's your guy to take over the remaining assistant captain A?
Wow.
Taves wears an A, right?
Not regularly.
Sometimes, but
makes sense.
I would pick Devon Taves. I mean, you talk about international. A guy who in the past has not been afraid to speak publicly about a team's performance. I mean, for me, it's 7.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my choice.
Yeah. I actually don't even think it's close. I actually don't know the difference between Taves and the next guy. I don't even know who the next guy would be.
No, it's
Logan
Taves.
O'Connor.
Yeah, I think that I think that it's Taves for sure.
This is a franchise that has made these types of moves that alter the direction of the franchise. They traded Eric Lindros, who was a can't-miss prospect. People forget about that, and that brought Peter Forsberg here and led to 2 cups. They traded for Patrick Waugh. Like, we talk about, this might be the biggest trade in Avs history. It could actually be the 3rd biggest trade in Avs history.
Well, it feels like it's the biggest trade going out. What's a bigger trade going out? I mean, Waugh's big coming in.
Duchesne.
No, Duchesne pales in comparison to this.
I'm just giving you an option. I agree. This is bigger.
Scale-wise, the Duchesne trade was so expensive, right? Because there were so many pieces to it with different teams and picks and this, and talking about who's left over from the Duchesne trade. And I mean, I think scale-wise, it's the biggest one. I think at the time, the Waugh trade, because remember,
the Waugh trade was huge. Yes, of course.
Jocelyn Thibault, right? Who's, primetime netminder back in 1995, going to the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, nothing close to that. Mike Keane, who's the Montreal Canadiens captain, for crying out loud. How Pierre Lacroix did that to this day, I still don't know. But yeah, as far as a player going out, this has to be probably the biggest.
O'Reilly,
bigger.
Yeah,
without a doubt, bigger.
I mean, I'm just trying to. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
O'Reilly's number was never going to go into the rafters.
Well, another thing here too, they trade him to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think games both times already this year.
I think that's important. And I'm sure the number one thing was the return, but you send him to the East, you send him to a franchise that operates well, coached by Rod Brindamore. There is an element here of doing right by Mikko Rantanen.
Good point.
Sending him to a cup contender with a good core around him. I don't think there's any players on the Hurricanes, though, that are on the level of McKinnon and Makar. So I am very curious to follow Mikko Rantanen the rest of this season and see what that player truly looks like as the alpha of a team.
Spring is such a hater on Rantanen. I can feel it.
Spring is
got it.
Spring's never been a Rantanen hater. Spring is very.
It's all about value. It's all about the contract number compared to what the player is. Okay. They talk about Jokic as a stat patter. Mikko Rantanen has been an empty net goal merchant this season.
But we did say that about Nikita Kucherov last year.
Oh, God.
No, don't get me twisted. Mikko Rantanen is a very good player. I just have my questions about him from time to time. Why does he not take over games like Nate or even Kale as frequently? And when you're talking about investing the $12.5 to $14 million, that's where I'm getting at.
He is the leading goal scorer on the team, right? Just checking. He does lead the team in actual goals, right?
And Nate just leads the Carolina Hurricanes in points. So
okay. Well, Nate leads the team in points, but right. I mean, there's
and Nate's one goal away from getting to 20 for the 10th time in his career.
Yeah.
But we touched on it for a second earlier on the Sidney Crosby, and there's no all reports are that he's very content, and then there's nothing happening there, and so I know that everyone wants to talk about Crosby to the Avs, but I think it's one of those things where the Avs are just living in this, and will they probably make more moves? We don't know. I mean, we never know. But I just think in regards to this move, if they were at a point where they knew that they couldn't get any further with Mikko, they had to get something back. And like I said at the very top, the return in that very limited scenario is really, really good for Chris McFarland.
Connor, does another player ever wear the number 96 in burgundy and blue?
Oh, boy. That is a great question. It's winning a cup changes everything.
Absolutely.
They've retired numbers for less.
Yes, they have. No, I would think not. Even if it's not retired, I think it would probably be suggested like maybe pick 95.
69 might be a better opportunity.
Probably not allowed in the National Hockey League. But yeah, I think even if it's not hanging above the ice and ball arena, I think it would probably be suggested that you don't.
The group, think about this. If I were to have told you 3 years ago that the final game that Nathan McKinnon Gabriel Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen
Was Game 6 of the Cup final? Yeah.
would ever play together is Game 6 of the Cup final. What do you say?
I would have said no way.
Yeah.
I would have said I believe it.
Yeah.
Because you guys you gotta remember how hurting Gabe Landeskog was, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't remember, he barely played, period. He did no morning skates whatsoever. He was on the ice playing hockey as little as humanly possible to suffer through that series. So if you're asking that question, it does not surprise me that Gabe Landeskog is having some serious injury issues and it continues today. So I know that's a little weird of a question. I think if you say, well, if you assume Gabe was healthy, then I would say no. The only reason I answer what I'm answering, I didn't think Mikko would be gone, but we all knew during that series what a heroic effort Gabe was making just to play. You know, that was crazy what he actually did.
I didn't quite realize at the time how severe Gabe's knee injury was. And no, that's good. That's good inside info that you gained at the time, DMac. I remember the timeline, or it was like, oh, Gabe will be back by New Year's.
Yeah,
the following season, and then it just was pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So I am a little surprised that those three last played when they lifted a cup together.
Well, here's what happens. They're not always that truthful with you if you haven't noticed about certain things, but you kind of can't hide things in the back of the arena, Connor. You know what I'm saying? You see certain things that, you just, you see these guys show up the next day, Connor. It's like, I couldn't believe Val Nichushkin came back. I couldn't believe Nathan MacKinnon came back. Cale Makar was bothered by things. Kadri couldn't use his thumb and his wrist. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, he had exposed screws in his thumb. Remember
right.
that?
I mean, there was some ridiculous things going on, fellas, during that run.
And every time you win, things are very much subject to change after that. So that's when you have teams that win back-to-back, or 2 cups in 3 years, or 3 cups in 5 years, so on and so forth. That's what makes that even more impressive, because change is constant for many variables. I mean, look how much the team has changed in a couple months, personnel-wise, right?
Yeah,
and things that are out of your control, like injuries, you just never know. So,
but let me say this real quick: if you posed that question, Ross, sorry, real quick, I would have said it was Gabe that wasn't going to be there, or might have an issue, not Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah,
I think that's where you were going. So,
I
said that.
I think that for Mikko, I mean, again, the market changes, and you just don't want it to change to a point where you can't, you're going to have to make tough decisions as a general manager, right? And you're not going to have your cake and eat it too. And I think this is the perfect example. Chances are you're not going to be able to keep, in a salary cap world, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen. One of them has to go.
Okay.
Which one are you going to pick to go? And sometimes the choice is made for you. Maybe it was in this instance. We don't know.
It feels like Sophie's choice.
Yeah.
This was not an easy choice. This, I'm sure, pained the Avalanche to have to make this move.
It had to be brutal. Had to be. By the way, how much more interesting is the Four Nations face-off in a couple weeks?
Well, that commercial they were running with Mikko, Nate, and Cale is now,
Yeah.
Well, Mikko he'll be playing with Arturi Lehkonen on that team.
Yeah. And Sebastian Aho. So
how much do we blame Ismo Lehkonen for Lehkonen? Ismo Lehkonen.
It's a Star Wars character.
Hey, dude, that's your new name. Ismo Lehkonen. Hey.
Yeah, that sounds like a Jedi right there.
Boy, he's on some Finnish talk show right now saying, "I told you so."
Mikko's not passing Arturi the puck at the Four Nations, I'll tell you that.
All right, Connor, how do you go about your pregame interview with Jared Bednar tomorrow?
Lighthearted as always. Hey, where'd you go for dinner last night?
That's
funny. Nothing happened.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, it's because I was trying to think back. The Blackwood trade was made while we were on the road in Pittsburgh.
I was a bottle of wine deep when I saw this. There were 58 text messages on my phone.
You were like an hour later, like, wait, what happened?
Seriously.
Tomorrow will be interesting. We'll get some and DMac, you know this. Sitting in those press conferences, you always get real out of Jared Bednar, which I really appreciate.
Yeah,
you always get real, and we're gonna
get
real and honest, and I think nothing but complimentary about Mikko Rantanen when we talk to him tomorrow. Early puck drop. It's going to be 11 a.m. Mountain Time.
Yeah.
1 p.m. here in freaking Boston. It's Dak. It's like Wicked Dak down there. How's it going, Bob? But yeah, I'm excited to talk to Coach tomorrow before the game and still get his what will be raw thoughts about the trade of Mikko Rantanen.
When's the earliest that we can see Drury and Necas in burgundy and blue?
I mean, because the Hurricanes play in New York, I believe, so they're on the road. I mean, it would not shock me. I think.
Is that tomorrow, Connor?
I would expect them to play tomorrow, I think.
Wow.
Don't know that. I mean,
damn.
Look, it turned around for Giovanni Smith, right, when he was traded.
The Hurricanes are in Manhattan right now.
That's wild.
Tonight.
Right. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So they could be here.
That's wild.
I think numbers wise, you almost have to have it.
What are the lines?
Boy, I mean, Necas is a right-handed shot, so he can play the wing or center.
Okay.
But I think you play him at the wing. I think you put him up top.
He's not your 2C and you demote Middlestat?
I mean, I don't think so. Drury's a center too, right? So what do you do with is Parson on the odd man out? Do you put Parson on the wing? I don't know what you do, but I do think that Necas in his skill set, you think him and Nathan McKinnon on the ice together, those are two of the fastest skaters, period, in the National Hockey League. I mean, that's a foot race.
You're not going Lehkonen, McKinnon, Dren?
I don't know. I mean, we can just throw a bunch of things in the hat here, and then we'll mix it around and see what lines we come up with. Okay,
what did you just put in your hat?
What's that?
What did you just put in your hat?
That was my wallet, some ice breakers, and my chapstick, just to see who we're gonna put on the line.
The lines are gonna be
who's who. My point is that as much as you want to, I mean, you can put them in the blender and then go back to your previous thought 3 shifts later. But I would think that Necas would start on that top line with McKinnon and maybe Jonathan Drouin.
Okay. So then you got theoretically Middlestat, Lehkonen, and
Colton.
Ross Colton.
Colton, right?
Until that is Valeri Nichushkin returns.
Hey, and don't forget that Miles Wood is on this trip, fellas. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But it's a like they say in Animal House, it's a distinct possibility that he'll play on this road trip either.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know about tomorrow or Sunday, but a day off Monday, and then they finish up Tuesday at the Islanders. So
the bigger question too is how are the players finding about this tonight? There is no morning skate. It's an afternoon game. How does this go? Well, Connor, you know better than anybody.
I mean,
on the road.
I haven't been out of that door since this happened, though, right? So I don't know. We'll gauge tomorrow, and Raj and I will talk about it on the pregame show. It starts at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time here on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. So we'll do some temperature taking in the morning on the way to the rink.
Lost in this trade is while Mikko Rantanen over the past 5 seasons is.
I don't know where I'm pointing. I'm sorry, everybody. Is this 92.5?
The general direction.
That's 92.5. You got that right there.
Okay, 92.5.
That's 92.5.
Okay.
Lost in this trade is Mikko Rantanen's 131 power play points since the beginning of the 21-22 season. That's 5th in the NHL behind Artemi Panarin, Nikita Kucherov, Leon Draisaitl, and Connor McDavid. You lose a lot of points on the power play for a power play that has been completely anemic.
Yeah, what points? What points are they losing?
Spring, that's why I wanted to ask the question. Is the power play better with Marty Necas on it, even when you lose a top 5 power play guy in terms of points in Mikko Rantanen?
That would be so interesting to see how used to are we having that big left-handed shot on the right side. Necas, I believe, a right-handed shot. So That it's gonna be weird
to
see.
Who has more points in the power play this year? Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, or Marty Necas?
Please let the answer be Marty Necas.
The answer is Marty Necas.
Let's go.
Marty Necas has more points in the power play than Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. MacKinnon has 21 and Mikko Rantanen has 19. So Marty Necas is the top 6 power play point getter in the National Hockey League.
Oh, that's so great for my narrative. That's so good.
I'm picturing Spring by an oil drum with a fire and a flame and a doo-wop group as he burns a 96 jersey.
Oh my God.
No, and look, the question that Raj asked earlier about will anyone wear 96 again is a great question. And my answer is no. You put 96 in the Raptors. I would have absolutely no problem with it. Again, to me, it was the money versus the player, and I just didn't quite think he was worth that. We're splitting hairs, $1 million, $2, but those are everything in a salary cap sport, and a tight one at that in the NHL. In a vacuum, though, all in all, Mikko Rantanen is an Avalanche legend, and I would not want anyone wearing 96 again.
Again, they've retired numbers for less. And if I don't want him to fall into the Carmelo Anthony conversation, and I don't think he will for Avs fans, where you have a subset of the fan base that can't stand the guy or thinks that he did the organization or the fan base wrong. I don't want him to fall into that, and I don't think he deserves to fall into that type of discourse.
I'm just laughing because I'm imagining Parsonen going up and saying, "Hey, I really admire Mikko. I really love that 96."
It's always a random fourth liner who comes up and wears the number, right?
He's Finnish, that would make more sense, right? Oh, that's my hero. I'd love to wear his number.
Imagine having the nuts to go up to the front office and going, "I'll take that one."
Yeah, Keaton Middleton. Hey, man, I've always liked 96. What do you think? All right, Keaton. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Pool or a pond? Pond to be good for you.
Is 19 available?
Yeah.
Hey, 92 is not being used. Can I have that one?
Oh God.
33.
Oh my God.
Fellas, Connor, you got to get out of here, brother. You got an early morning. It is late.
Yeah, I stayed up an extra 4 hours for you guys. 11:33.
Hey, you got an extra taker in there.
Holy cow.
It's about 3 hours past my bedtime. There's an old man. But look, days like this don't happen very often. And I think this is actually the first time you guys have ever invited me on Pipes. Ever.
That's not
this
true
is the
at
new
all.
and improved Between the Pipes, where we're online now.
Yep.
Just hop on anytime, for real.
I don't go anywhere unless I'm invited, right? I'm not the guy who just shows up like, hey, you guys want to hang out? Want to hang out with me? I have to be invited.
You live right down the street from me. Just knock on the door.
Bring a boombox outside.
Hey, Connor, for what it's worth,
just John Cusack outside.
Connor, for what it's worth, I never thought 1 second about having you on anything. So,
hey, you had me on the show.
We had you on the show. We did have you on the radio show. That's right. What am I saying? We just had you on the radio show.
You have me on the show once a week.
Hey, what's your call for Necas? Come on, man. What do we got? What do we got?
It's a Marty party.
Oh,
that's good.
Is there a Drury call in there?
Got to make a reference to Chris Drury somehow.
Or do I? It's his nephew.
No, I get it. Uncle says yes. I don't know.
Say uncle.
Say uncle. Hey, Drury scores. Say uncle. That's good.
Say uncle. Say uncle's kind of funny.
If his uncle wasn't the GM of the New York Rangers, it would probably make it a little more.
If he scores against the Rangers, if he scores against the Rangers somehow,
say uncle.
Oh, say uncle will happen. If Jack Drury scores on Sunday afternoon at the other Garden,
yeah.
Then all right, fine. Say uncle.
Perfect. Perfect. I love it. Oh my God, I love it. I'm so happy about it.
That is good. That's a good one.
All right, fellas. Connor, get out of here. Go to bed. I'll talk to you in the morning.
Wait, hold on. Look at this last comment here. We should touch on that from
What's up?
VTAC versus the world. Because I'm seeing this online too, by the way, guys. There's more to come in Colorado. There's got to be more to come. There's got to be more to come.
Well, like you said, the trade deadline is until March 7th.
Got to be more.
Of course. Yeah, I don't,
And there might be more to come even with this trade itself in terms of draft picks. I saw Elliot Friedman tweet out that there could be draft picks, maybe one solid one or multiple coming to Colorado as well. And look, the Avs in recent years have traded a lot of draft capital, a lot of their prospects to acquire, guys that help them win now. Lehkonen, Manson, etc. They were a touch depleted. So I do hope draft picks come back to help replenish the farm a little bit.
Somebody Spring put in the chat, write it down. And then he went, hell, record this. He just right on for Vic Lombardi. That just made me laugh. That was very
It's
funny.
too damn good, man.
Oh, boy. All right. I'm delirious.
That's good.
Love you all. And tomorrow morning in the Mile High City at 10:30, Raj will be on. I'll join him. And then Puck Drop in DMac's beloved freaking Boston.
Just look out the window. You see Ipswich in the bay. Cape Ann, slightly to the north. Ipswich, right up there. Cranes Beach. Look it up. It's right out your
so
window.
you're a dog,
That's
right?
the
So
most
what's that
Brian
about?
Kelly shit I've ever heard.
That's where we are. Out there in Andover, Hamilton,
where we
Wenham.
are.
Yeah, that's where we are. Get my Dunkin' Donuts. Coming down. Watch the Bruins.
Everybody I run into is just Mark Wahlberg. So you're a dog, right? Like, what's that about?
Yeah, thank God they fired Jim Montgomery. He was a bum. Thank God they got rid of him.
That's
Where's Cam Neely when you need him? Rick
All
Middleton.
right, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to drink of lobsters all night. Good night. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll see you.
Good night, guys. See you, Connor.
Are you
DMac,
saying goodbye to me? You guys are going to talk? You can get rid of me too if you want.
You got anything else?
Well, we'll be on tomorrow after the game, so we'll talk more then.
I'll just say this. I understand it. I do understand it. And I do support it if you can't get the deal done. Okay? I do. I'm just a little bummed. Okay? I get it. I'm not necessarily angry about it. I'm not throwing stones or bricks. But Mikko he's one of the guys, man. He's one of the Cup champs. He's a core guy. It stings, but I get it. How about that?
It hurts.
I know Spring doesn't care.
No,
at all.
in a perfect world, if this was the 90s, pre-salary cap, I don't want Mikko going anywhere. I get it. Mikko Rantanen is a very good player and an Avs legend. So yes, this is not a great day by any means. But I get why they did it. Just like you, maybe for a little bit different reason. I get why they did it.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll end it here. 619 games, 681 points, 287 goals,
Man.
101 playoff points in just 87 career games, 2 All-Star games, and a 2022 Stanley Cup championship. I'll answer my own question. No player should ever wear 96 in Colorado ever again. It's a shame he's not going to be here. It makes me sad. Does it make me think that Colorado can't win a cup this year? Hell no, it doesn't. I think Chris McFarland got a great haul back after he understood that he wasn't going to be able to re-sign his third superstar because of a hard cap in this league. He got a really good player back in Marty Necas, who has term through next year. He got a depth centerman, which he has desperately needed all season long to kill penalties and to win faceoffs. And he also gave his team the ability not only to move around during the deadline this year, but in the offseason next year. I think it was a great job. Does it hurt like hell? It's a kick in the nuts, guys. I'm going to miss him. As a fellow Finn, I love that player so damn much.
Raj playing the Finn card there, Spring. Playing the
Better
Finn card.
believe
Hey, no, that's when you're blood.
Yeah, I tell you.
I can't match that.
It's pretty thin blood up there in Finland too. Actually, maybe
DMac, it's so funny.
Cold
Dude,
blood up there.
I'm going to send you a text message of Mikko Rantanen's father and my father side by side. You'd think they were twins.
There you go. You got the blonde hair to prove it. The light eyebrows.
Yeah, but Mikko's 6'4", I'm 5'7", baby. Oh, DMac, thanks for joining us. Spring, love you, brother.
Of course.
I'll talk
tomorrow.
I'll
Hockey
talk
tomorrow.
To you in Spring and I are going to be back on the air in 15 hours from right now.
Awesome.
Wild night. Get out of here, guys. Mikko Rantanen traded. The Avalanche get Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a second-rounder, and a fourth-round pick back in the trade. That's the end of the Mikko Rantanen era. After a decade, he's no longer an Av. We'll see you guys tomorrow.